Hello. In this course, we will see what does it take to create film quality large-scale fluids or liquids effects using available commercial software, and in this case, RealFlow. As you can see here, this is the main scene of our course, and for this scene, we will be creating the water body using Hybrido solver, which is the RealFlow flip solver, which you can see in other software such as Houdini, Bifrost, Naiads, and PhoenixFD. Also, we will be creating all kind of secondary white particles such as foam, splash, and mist, in addition to other kind of particles which RealFlow is offering all the way. As well, we will study other important details of how to establish realistic stormy ocean surface and how to add small and large details using ocean forces and displacement tools. Finally, we will end up rendering everything using V-Ray and Krakatoa to understand and practice managing similar scenarios easily as fast as possible using affordable resources you can have even in your home computer. Let's start. So why RealFlow? RealFlow is actually one of the best dynamics and simulation software out there. With everything you may need to create fluids, liquids, and particles, soft bodies, rigid bodies, even sand, and to have full control of getting them interact with each other in one environment. And this is a very powerful feature, which you may not find always in other softwares. Also, it is easy, means you will mostly see all the tools you will need in the shelf. You don't need to recreate everything whenever you want to do something new. As well, there is this thing about RealFlow which makes it really one of the best. RealFlow is specialized in all kinds of dynamics. So here, this is one of the scenarios we did before and we made a course about, in which we can see how RealFlow does all the simulation needed to have this building collapse, the kind of control you can get here, as well as the kind of connection between pieces is established using multi-joints and multi-bodies features. Allows us to manage a huge amount of objects during destruction scenarios. All I need to know is that I can get everything ready for RealFlow. RealFlow take care of all the interaction needed between them. Let's go through RealFlow layout and learn more about how to manage things. It's always good to know where everything is available and about the new tools. As you can see, RealFlow has very simple layout. Everything is reachable. You don't really need to search much about things. We have the main menu here. We have everything inside these menus, but we also have icons which present everything inside the menus mainly. And in the same time, we have some editors here as a feedback editor about what's happening in our scene, how to manage our objects, and in the same time, how to change their parameters, how to see the node system, and how to manage the connection between objects, also how to move things and how to visualize things. Let's just go through everything and see how RealFlow is really easy to learn. So first we have three main areas. One of these areas is the nodes or the objects in our scene and their parameters. And we have the network, which really define the connections or the relationships between these objects. Also, we have the main shelf tool, which has all the objects which we can create here in our scene, as well as the modifiers or the forces or the scaling or measurements tools. In addition to this window, which is the messages window, which is basically a feedback system of what's happening here. It will notify us if there's something wrong. It will tell us what to do if we have something which is really not clear. And in the same time, as mentioned, you can get everything from these menus. The node system or the node layout here is basically listing all the objects in the scene. You can pick up any object here and you will see it highlighted here. I can go to view, show, and show highlighted to show or to highlight objects when they are chosen. So I have the list of all the objects here, and I have the ability to group things. As example, I can grab some of these objects by choosing one of them and control to choose other ones. Then I can right mouse button and group these objects into one group. Also, whenever we choose any of these objects, we have the parameters layout, which will show us all of its parameters, its node parameters, such as transformations and color, objects parameters, which really discuss everything about its properties and attributes, which we can change, animate, and do whatever we want. We always will see this circle beside all the animated attributes. So whenever we want to animate one of them, we can just press this icon and it will take in consideration creating one keyframe for this attribute. Sometimes it's like this, which means it's a texture, which if we will press, it will animate, but if we will press right mouse button, we can load some texture and we can control its properties by having black and white texture or just, see what's happening to it using some images. Also, we can go here down and we'll see display. Display is our way or RealFlow's way of visualizing things. So it can be simple by just hiding and displaying things. But at the same time, it can show us a lot of information about the object. If I will choose the whale here, as you can see, I can make it visible or invisible. And I can do that also from here. I can display it in wireframe, shaded mode, shaded smooth mode, and I can do that also by pressing 9 and 0 on the keyboard, 890. Also, I can show the normals to make sure that my objects have normal pointing out, which is the correct way of having the objects inside RealFlow. Show velocities. If I have some velocities, it will show me where all the arrows pointing. Also, we can see the real presentation of its collision object by going to display volumes. As example, we have the whale here and I can press this button to see how RealFlow is enabling these particles or showing these particles where is the collision object of the whale. This isosurface, as it's mentioned here, is the way RealFlow is trying to manage how we can create some kind of a presentation for any object in RealFlow to make it interact easily or in an affordable way with particles or other objects. We also has an old way of presenting this by slice plan. As you will see, we'll talk about it, but basically it's in XY as example here, and we will see where's the red area, which is the collision area. Other areas are going gradually to blue, means that they are not colliding with the particles. Everything inside the red area is taken in consideration when studying the collision between particles and this object as example. We have in other axes. So this is the visualization layout. In the same time, we have some of the icons here, which will allow us to make any object or any node here active or inactive, or also in a cache mode. As example, here I have the particle system, the water particle system, and I can hide it, of course, using visibility button, but also I can make it cache mode. Means when I run the simulation here in RealFlow, it will not simulate these particles. It will just import them and display them here, but also they will be able to interact with any kind of other particles or objects in the scene. This is very a good way of managing things and really allowing the small resources or the limited resources for your hardware to work fine. We will know exactly how to do this or to work with this, but basically sometimes you can just create like here 14 or 15 million particles and also create the foam and the splash in the same time and have everything interacting with each other. Usually we need to create the main water body and have it interact with the whale. Then we put it in the cache mode and we start creating other particle system, which actually is generated from this surface or liquid, and it does interact one way with this liquid. So this is the cache mode. Also, I can go to red, which is also available here, which means it's not active, means RealFlow will not see it during the simulation. Other thing is this icon, which is like a floppy disk. And what does it mean is that RealFlow, it's not always loaded in the scene, not all the animation timeline loaded in the RAM here. Actually, it's saved on the disk, hard disk. Press this button means that we allow RealFlow to import these objects or not. So now I have it inactive, means if I will just move one frame in any direction, means I will not be importing the next frame of the liquid. It means that I'm not exporting or importing these liquids from the hard disk, as you see here. If I will press this button and I will go back one frame, I will have this particle system imported and displayed in the viewport. Let's see what's happening here. So this is the relationship editor, and in it we will have the chance to connect nodes with each other. As example, we have the hub here, and basically it's just one central node. Doesn't do anything except connecting things together. So as example, I have object here, or let's say, let's catch this, which is the whale, and we can see it here inside this, because we put everything related to the whale in one group. So this is the group. It will be highlighted when we choose it, and it's connected to the hub. In the same time, we have drag, we have ocean wave, we have other forces in the scene, and we have other particle systems such as the hybrido particle system here and here, connected to the same hub, means that they are able to interact with each other. If I have some objects like this one, which is out or not connected to this hub, it's not interacting with the whale. If I have such as this one connected directly to the water, but it's not connected to the hub, it doesn't affect the whale at all. This is a very good and simple way of having interaction between things. We will learn more about that during the course for sure. Now we have the shelf here, and we have all kind of objects. In RealFlow, we have three kind of particles. We have Diverso, which is the newest one, and basically it's very good for medium scale liquids. I wouldn't use that for large scale liquids, even it does really well. And in a small or medium scale, it does really good. When it's coming to bigger scale for liquids, I will go to Hybrido. This is the usual way of doing things, which is the flip solver for reflow, as mentioned before. And the other applications are using the same one here, which is the flip solver. And we have the SPH solver, and it's basically slow compared to the other two. And it's not really the way you need to do things, but it's really embedded in RealFlow, interacting with everything, and you can always try to do things using SPH. In Diverso, it's faster, and as mentioned, it's the newest, and it has sands, it has elastic bodies, it has rigid bodies, it has even soft bodies, everything you can put in one environment and get everything interact with each other. This is the most powerful thing about Diverso. In Hybrido, it's mostly for oceans, seas, for creating secondary particles such as foam, bubbles, splash and mist, waterline, wet particles. As you will see in this course, we will be concentrating on this one, and you will see you can create anything basically with Hybrido. It's so good. Dynams. So the forces in RealFlow are here, from gravity to wind to vortex. Everything is available here, and you can just connect it during your work in the relationship editor, and you'll have the effect you need. Some of the nodes are not old, such as Ocean Force, which we will learn much about it. It will enable us to create the waves we see here, to create a stormy sea. This is it, actually. It can be visualized in real time. We can see the kind of wave we will generate before we even simulate anything, which is so affordable and a good way of estimating things before we get into calculating a huge amount of particles. It also has the filter. Usually we used to write some script using Python or the Reflow script to do the filter, and the filter is our way of having our particles to behave based on a condition related to velocity. If their velocity reached to a certain degree, they will act like this. If they will be in certain position, I want them to do something else. This is a very good and simple way of doing that. Other nodes are not new, but I would recommend really to test each one of them, because every one of them has really very powerful attributes, which is useful when you want to control or reshape your liquids. As example, if we compared a RealFlow with Phonics FD, Phonics FD doesn't have a rigid and soft body simulation setup. It doesn't have a real dynamic environment like this. It just have a liquid system, which is like Hybrido. It's a flip solver. The kind of forces here is not available in Phonics FD. The only one which I can say it's the ocean force in a shape of a vector displacement, as we may see in other course, and we will go through these in our course. All these ones, KKK, is to kill particles based on their age, or if they are inside the volume or outside the volume, if they cross some kind of speed. You will see about that. Objects. There are many built-in objects here for testing things, and sometimes to just ease things. We don't need to have to import everything from 3D applications. We just have to throw a box here or cylinder. But at the same time, Sometimes we need to bring things from 3D applications. We have two ways of bringing those things from 3D. One of them is to import things as here in import, and it allow us to import two kinds of objects. One of them is objects, the extension objects, which means we can import any object or group of objects, which we can deal with separately when we import them, like in import. And we can actually import animated object using this one. The extension is SD or Alembic, newly embedded in RealFlow. For multi-body, it's another way of importing objects, and actually it's a lifesaver. So sometimes when you import objects like here, the whale and the ground and some surrounding objects, you will be able to import them once. If you want to import other objects, RealFlow will give you the choice to delete everything and import the other objects, or to update these objects. But sometimes you just want to add one object. This is the way you use multi-body. Also, multi-body is so useful when dealing with destruction, because basically you can import 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 objects, fractured objects, and as a group, as one group. It's what we also say or name backed objects, as in Houdini. The concept was created here first. The idea about this is that you can import them as SD files, but it's not animated. You can establish some kind of relationship between the parts using multi-joints, but also you can apply all kind of forces or change their properties as one object. It means it's so powerful in having you managing everything easily. Fracture. Actually, before this was created, we created some courses about how to fracture everything outside of RealFlow, bring it here to do destruction, as in the scene we display in the beginning of this course, the church collapse scene or destruction scenes. But later RealFlow or NextLimit decided to have these tools here, which is so good, because now you can just bring any object, fracture it, customize the fracturing and everything. It will be exported or deal here like multi-body object, and you will just put some gravity and have it interact with everything in the scene. Now let's go to mesh. Mesh, when you do this, when you do any particle system, you need to end up having a mesh, because that will be rendered in 3D applications. In some particle systems, in some simulation particle systems, such as Xflow, they deal with multi-hundred of millions of particles, and you can basically render that kind of particles to have a smooth result. But in these applications, in RealFlow and in Houdini and some of the 3D applications, having everything meshed finally is a very affordable way of smoothing things and shading things in an easier way. So creating some kind of metaspheres, connecting them in a procedure, or very specific procedure, and modifying this procedure is the way we can have the water here as one object, export it into a 3D application and shade it and render it. Unlike the other particle systems such as splash and foam, which their numbers can be really huge also, but we need to import them as particles because they act like particles, not like one surface of water. So this is what it is all about. Here we have two ways of meshing the hybrido, and we will be choosing one to deal with during our course. Other tools here are just the display tools, and we have some measurements tools here, which is so useful sometimes to estimate or to measure the volume of some object, the density of objects, and also to retime the animation, which is so good here. You can animate something in RealFlow or get the simulation done for 100 frames. Then you can extend it into 1000 frame as example without resimulating everything. RealFlow to create another copy or another in between meshes or particles, you will end up having totally very slow motion version of your simulation, and you can even RAM time everything. But what we'll use from here is the stitch Alembic. So because we will be exporting things in Alembic extension versus a bin, which I will mention that why I prefer bin, but we will be exporting everything using Alembic, and this tool will allow us to convert the Alembic sequence, which we will export from RealFlow, into one file, one big Alembic file, which is the only way to make it work in 3D application, because 3D application doesn't have the utility to import a sequence of Alembic files. We will be using this tool and we will explain it. Well, RealWave is very interesting node, and it's just one of the oldest nodes in RealFlow. It's just a surface, a mesh which can really interact with particles or with objects and can shape or produce very interesting waves without even having particles. Also, we can convert any object into a real wave surface and have it interact with other objects in RealFlow. We will go through that and we will create some noise or displacement pattern to visualize it and see the result before we apply it in huge amount of particles, as you will see. Other nodes are here, and one of them is Maxwell. Maxwell render is one of the best renders out there. The idea about it, in my opinion, is that there is no much educational material to cover this renderer. Actually, it's the most accurate one, realistic and accurate one. And if you really want to know more about Maxwell, just please drop us an email and let us know about that. We can create a set of courses to cover this thing. But what you can do here in RealFlow is that you can just run it by going to Fire, set up everything, and have the shader ready and render the result from here directly. The good thing about it also is that if you create things in RealFlow, you will have a lot of attributes. It's not hidden attributes, but it's just, the kind of attributes you will need to deal with. As example, if you go to the water body here, you will have vorticity, and you will have normals, you will have velocities, you will have a lot of other parameters. If you want to use them, shade them in 3D application, it's not easy to get these parameters or to control them in 3D application. The connection between RealFlow and 3D application is somehow limited with the kind of importer you will use there. So we used to use a render kit for RealFlow, which is not produced anymore, which was really good, but it's full of bugs. I would say I wouldn't use it in a production environment. But if you would use a Krakatoa, you will have the opportunity to have these parameters. With also some nodes from V-Ray, you will get the chance to manipulate and use these parameters to create some motion blur, some shading, some even try to manage or work out some particles, add some velocities or anything you need in 3D application to modify its behavior. But in RealFlow here, if you want to get full benefit of these parameters, or to have full control over them, the connection between Maxwell and RealFlow is seamless. You will get everything into Maxwell. I would recommend using Maxwell with RealFlow. Other than that, I think we covered everything related to the layout. Things which we will go through during our work: how to set up the scene and how to open some of the layouts here, change a few things to make sure that we are exporting the right data from our simulation.